I want to welcome everybody to a, wonderful day of Seattle sunshine. And today we're honored to have, as you know, first Sunday of every month is honoring the guest. And today we are honored to have Wajid Gallien here, who is one of the leaders in the Sufi community in this area. And Wajid will be giving a talk. Every year, we pick a topic for discernment. And this year the topic is the mystic heart. And each month we take another aspect of it. The aspect for this month is the ideal. And that is what Wajid will be speaking about. But first, I'm going to ask, you're going to do honoring the feminine? Or no, you're going to do welcoming the ancestors? If you would, please. Janine.
Good morning, everybody. So, thinking about our ancestors, all the way back to whatever the first ancestor was, probably more than the frog climbing out, but evolution does its trick. Anyway, for those who believe in evolution. So I'd like to welcome in our ancestors and exude a sense of gratitude. We wouldn't be here without them, and the wisdom that's been passed on over the years. So many things we still refer to. And then our families, our parents, our closer lineage. So we can welcome into our space and invite them to be here with us and ask them for wisdom and be open to hearing the wisdom of the ancestors. But I think the gratitude is also so important. And then as part of the ancestors of this land, we want to honor the indigenous people that were here before us and on whose land this church is built. This was occupied by the Coast Salish people, and the Duwamish in particular is where the sanctuary building sits. So we want to pay respect to the Coast Salish elders, past and present, and extend that respect to their descendants and to all indigenous people. The consequences of displacement and broken treaties, can weigh heavy on our hearts. I think an awareness and respect is really important. We need to work towards supporting the Duwamish people and all indigenous people using various forms of wealth, and there is a website for the Duwamish who have not been recognized by the federal government and keep working towards that. And I believe they have a longhouse in South Seattle, but you can Google them. And I think that was all I'm going to say, so welcome.
And now I would ask our dear brother George to come up to honor the feminine.
Thank you, Rich. And it's always an honor to provide an offering for the Divine Feminine. And when I do, I always have to remind myself that the Divine Feminine is not something I need to reach out to. It's something I need to reach within for. And when I think about making an offering to the Divine Feminine, I can't think of a greater offering in some respects than our presence and our awareness. And for me, probably the most joyous way that I think of the Divine Feminine is in terms of wisdom, of Sophia. And I ran across this little quote from a letter from Pierre Teilhard Chardin that I thought was actually pretty lovely, and I think it's apropos for our offering this morning. And he says, "You know what my dearest wish that God through Our Lady, may grant us so to share in her purity and to have so ardent a passion for her that we may really be able to serve in our small way to regenerate this world. We must have absolute faith in the power of this divine virtue to transform souls and spread itself. And we must see to it, too, that the greatest interest of our life is to feel that we are growing a little more within her and are serving to radiate her influence. Thank you.
We can do it. Thank you, Janine, and thank you, George. As I was saying earlier, our discernment for the year is the mystic heart. And each month we take a different aspect of that. And for this month, that aspect, I'm totally blanking on. The ideal, excuse me, the ideal. Folks, it's one of those mornings. So, and the first week of the month is the week where we honor the guest. And I'm very honored this time to introduce Wajid, who is one of the leaders of the Sufi community in the Seattle area. And he is going to be giving a talk on the ideal from a Sufi Inayat perspective. So without further ado, I want to welcome Wajid.
Thank you. I am very honored to be honored. Is it working? Yeah?
Let me check.
Am I talking not loud enough or a little closer? Well, yes, thank you for offering, as it turned out, the idea of working on an ideal. It's something that I've been working on for a long time, but recently it's come into focus a little more clearly. I came to the realization that from a spiritual perspective, of course, we are suggested to pick an ideal that we want to manifest in a spiritual, religious way, and to try to become acquainted with that ideal. And so it seemed to be kind of an isolated thing. You do it because you're working on your spirituality and so on. And it dawned on me recently a little more clearly that there was a separation that was maybe necessary at the beginning in order to be able to focus on an ideal, you know, courage, beauty, compassion, whatever it is that you choose. But then I realized it's kind of interesting that actually all our lives we work with an ideal. And perhaps it's one of the most important things that we have that allows us to focus our life and to direct our lives. And sometimes, as we see in society, some people have no ideals, find themselves lost without knowing which way to go. They're expecting for something to happen, and sometimes it happens from the outside. So there was... I wanted to be able to reintegrate instead of separating the concept of ideal. And I looked at it and I thought, you know, when we're young, when we are born, we actually immediately fall into an ideal. And that ideal is that of our parents. Our parents have a certain idea and concept and desire for us, and that's their ideal for us. And so we are born into that, and their influence is to manifest that ideal. whatever that may be, go to school, become a musician, become an intellectual, and whatever it is. And then we spend a part of our life kind of trying to fit in, if that fits for us, and sometimes it doesn't. So there is all the trauma of growing up. And then we reach a certain age where we separate from our parents. And we all know that, there's a kind of a transition period where we need to, as kids, to take over our own lives and no longer be dependent on our parents, which of course sometimes doesn't happen for a long time. But for the most part, it happens around, that's why we have laws with ages around 21, 22, 23. It's a time period where we kind of collect ourselves and decide, okay, what am I doing with my life? And that becomes a point of departure for our search. And at that stage, we're looking for an ideal. And here, often what happens in society, particularly now with the means of communication, is that we are attracted by an outside ideal presented by somebody else. An influencer, an artist, somebody who plays in a movie or character. We pick up people that we look towards. And they become, in a sense, our ideal. There's a direction that our life takes that maybe indirectly we look forward to acquire whatever attributes and mannerism that person has so that we can become in that kind of general style. And that can last a whole lifetime. But sometimes comes a moment in our life where we realize that that is a very social, mundane level of idealism, and that perhaps we discover that there is another dimension of idealism that is more, we call it spiritual, but I like to think of it personal, self-unfoldment, self-revealing. And when that happens, when we begin to really work on an ideal, and that could be, as I said before, excuse me, any ideal, but whatever it is, it becomes the guiding light in our lives. Like you can imagine a boat on the sea, and somewhere there is a, what do you call those, lighthouse. Thank you. There's a lighthouse. And that lighthouse allows the boat to know where it is in the sea, because it's kind of open sea. There's no other point of reference. And in our lives, we have the same situation where when we don't find an ideal, we are constantly under the input and experience of vibration from our surroundings. Everybody's trying to sell us something, direct us towards something, make us something as to what they think we should be. And we have to deal with that, and it's back and forth, and depending on your friends, if they feel the same way, you create a little group and you go in that direction. But eventually, as I was mentioning, you come to your own and you realize that influence is really, in a very subtle way, nevertheless aggressive. It demands our attention. And now you have you have found in your life a calling, let's say, or a feeling that you feel will fulfill something in you or in me that has not been achieved yet. And that's the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of intelligence, is the evolution of our spiritual life. So at that point, we tend to look for an organization, a religion, a teacher that helps us unfold and discover what that ideal is. And that's, of course, the extremely important time, because for some, that ideal is self-revealed, and they know what it is, they're secure, and you know them in life. They have an attitude about them, they know where they're going, and it's nothing you can do about it. It's that's their ideal. But in comparison, you feel, why don't I have that energy? And you take courses from them to teach you how to get there, but that's not it. I think at some point, we need to fall within and to listen to what in general we call our heart. Because the heart has an ideal for us, but we haven't listened to it. We've been distracted by all the input from life, from the environment, and what people say. So we perhaps can find somebody that helps us focus and go within to discover our own ideal, our own direction, our own calling. And that process is a wonderful discovery because for the first time in our lives, we are now discovering that there is more to us than we thought. And it was hidden by all the busyness of our mind. And the heart really is kind of independent of the mind. And after a little while, as you give credence to the heart opens up more and more and begins to actually interact with the mind. In Sufism, we say the heart is the depth of the mind. But because the mind is in the surface, it takes all the credit. But after a little while, kind of we get into the depth, into the heart. And so you start listening to the heart, which then begins using a new dimension of the mind. It's not the common rational, but more the intuitive dimension of the mind, which is the heart. An important time in our lives, and often requires some level of attention, and we're not used to it. And so this is the point where it's nice to have somebody a teacher or an organization or a group that helps you recognize the steps to unfold and to manifest this calling of the heart. And there are steps, there are, some methods, meditation or using music or using keywords to concentrate in a certain direction. All of those are part of the natural spiritual journey. But I think the most important is to realize this. We are in a vastness of vibrational energies that surround us. Each one of us has our own vibration. The trees, the people that live across the street, all the plant life, the mineral life has a vibration, the animal life has a vibration, and slowly now we are discovering the human vibration and its influence and its importance. And having discovered that, we discover there is also a jinn level of vibration, an angelic level of vibration. And that angelic level is actually the source of the guidance that draws us forward as it calls upon us by the very nature of the process of being alive to enter into a greater way of perception in relation to life, into relation to our heart, in relation to our soul. So the ideal is an important tool in our self-imposed journey. And I hope that each one of you finds a source that reveals to you what that may be, because as I say, we are in a vast sea of energies being constantly bombarded, and the source, the ideal, becomes a light that exists in the overall dimension of our presence. We speak of our auric bodies and other things, but I call it the presence. We are who we are. We radiate now. Scientists can measure. They tell you, oh, you radiate 1 feet, 2 feet, and if you're really healthy, in good shape, and you believe in yourself, maybe 20 feet, And when people come into a room and they walk in, everybody goes, whoa. And it's like their presence, they carry it with themselves. So it's a palpable thing. We know that. And so we want to be able to work with that and to activate it in a way that gives us a buffer zone, if you will. You know, we don't want to stop anything, but a buffer zone in the sense that instead of ourselves being completely responsive to inputs from outside, you don't respond automatically. You know, like in our normal consciousness, you hear a noise here, you go, what? And it's like there's a requirement. Our mind, ourselves, we want to know what is that sound. But once you're starting living within the buffer zone of your own self, you hear it outside of your radiance. There's a sound there, and you go, oh. You kind of look at it, do I want to address it? No, it's not an important one. And you fall back. You begin to take charge over the sensory body, over your automatic responding method of being. It's automatic, it's instinctive. And this is the beginning of the discovery of functioning at a level that we call intuition. There's a big difference for instinct and intuition. Instinct, survival, self-focus, protection. Intuition, it's an opening up. It's a verifying what's surrounding the world. What are we part of? So when you enter this level of intuition, you are within the field of your presence as you learn to commune with it, to become it, because, at the beginning we're kind of a little bit closed. And then, we do practice chanting prayers, whatever works. And those allow us to create that buffer zone. We now are able to interact from a greater space with the exterior. It doesn't mean that you don't feel things anymore. You just are more aware where they're coming from or how they affect you. And you can then begin to address the environment that is touching us as what you think is something that is worth you addressing. Is it uplifting? Is it something that is going to be depressing? Is it something that is going to make you feel joyous? You make choices. All of a sudden you're in charge. And you look at, and the impressions that you get are not something that you ignore altogether. You simply make a choice of what you let in to your buffer zone, because that is your source of becoming, your source of energy, your source of well-being, your source of illness if you let it come in and kind of gnaw at you and make you anxious or whatever it is that it does. So it's also a healing process, I would say. So one way that the Sufis have to do that is to use certain practices. Now, you need to understand that when we do a practice and we are calling one of the names of God, whatever that may be, or a saint or whatever works for you, that becomes an influence. So before you invoke or use it repetitively, any name or invoking any great being, you need to decide, is this what I need now? Is that my attunement? Is that the direction in my life? Because there are many human beings, great beings, master saints and prophets that have existed. And why are there so many? It's because each one is for a group of people, certain people that react in a certain way. Prophet Muhammad is not for everybody in a certain sense, nor is Jesus, nor is Buddha, nor is Zoroaster. It worked for some people. It's interesting to learn about them, but it may not be something that resonates for you because the essence of their teaching is addressing in a very wide way, a specific form of radiance, of energy, of invocation of the divine. So you get to choose. You decide, okay, there's many ways of being able to access these talks or presentation or whatever they are. And you listen to it and you feel it here. You don't hear it. I mean, it may be really interesting here, but does it touch you here at the heart? And when it touches, you feel good about it. And you may not remember what they said. It's like that, it's gone by. But your heart says, oh, yes, that was good. So that's what you want to listen to. And then you start, you can then begin to associate what kind of energy does that person represent, and which other people have that energy. And you find out that that's your home. It becomes your home. And all of a sudden, you notice that the friends that you have around you are responding to that energy. They have the same quality. They are interested in who you are because you represent something that interests them. And so you create kind of pockets, and then you yourself associate with certain people because they bring to you that feeling that you feel. There's a certain attunement that really you learn through. And not so much, I mean, intellectually is always important, but it's mostly at this point we're talking about the heart. You learn to become in a certain state of consciousness. Your mode of thinking changes as you are transformed by your interaction with different people. My teacher, Vilayat Inayat used to say, each discovery of a state of consciousness has a mode of being and of experiencing. And so we move through planes of realizations. And as we move to planes of realizations, our ideals change. And so it gets to a point where you may have been following a very specific idea for quite a while, and you encounter yourself faced with what Hazrat Inayat Khan called shattering the ideal on the rock of truth. And that is so beautiful because, you know, the ideal, it's self-created. We accumulate all the bits and pieces that work for us, and we become that, but it's all self-created. It doesn't mean that this is it. There is more. Wait, there is more. And you get to a point where life will shadow you, showing you that that ideal has a limitation. And you wake up to the experience of being free from the limitation that you grew into creating for yourself. It's what we call the comfort zone. The comfort zone is a wonderful thing, but it gets to a point where you're avoiding life because you like your comfort zone. Life is much more than the comfort zone. So here, you shattered the ideal. It was like a comfort zone, and you're in a new state of realization. And there's a new ideal, a new dimension of the ideal, a new form of the ideal. And one progresses, and it's like your life is full of wonder again. All of a sudden, you were going to go, yeah, the idea, and here we are, life is like this. And then there's this breakthrough, and you go, oh my God, oh, look at that. I never realized there was so much more. Welcome to the spiritual journey. I hope it works for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wajid. That was wonderful. You've definitely given us a lot of thoughts to ponder. Well, at this point, I'd like to talk to you all about upcoming gatherings. It may seem strange to those of you, to many of you, but this place isn't only open on Sundays. Okay, we pretty much have stuff going on here every day of the week. One thing that I want to mention is next Saturday, which will be the first Saturday of the month, or second Saturday of the month, my bad, we will be having at 3 o'clock our study circle reading the writings of Meister Eckhart and discussing them. These are usually very lively conversations. Now, George usually sends out, ahead of time what we're going to be reading, and it is brilliant, and it is short. So, most of these average about maybe 6 or 7 pages. The longer one's 10. But it's a bite-sized chunk. It's not something that you can't handle. And D.T. Suzuki called Meister Eckhart the West's first Zen teacher. And his stuff is very heavy, very worth reading. He was also interfaith ahead of his time. If you read his sermons, you'll find him often quoting people like Maimonides and Ibn Arabi, which is probably why he meets the criteria that I find the most captivating in a Christian spiritual leader, and that is he got in trouble with the Inquisition. So, but there's that. Now, there's other things that go on here, too. I don't want to go on too long about what is, clearly one of my pet things to go to. We have, on Thursdays, we have Sitting in Silence, which George runs, and it's quiet meditation. We have, is it Tuesdays and Wednesdays we do the Matnavi? Right. Fridays at 1:30, and this is on Zoom, but we have prayer in the Islamic tradition. And what is Monday? Is Monday Course in Miracles? Or? Right, my bad. How could I miss that? Monday is the Mevlevi Dhikr here. And, it involves turning in that. We're doing a turning class now, if I remember right. Starting tomorrow, right? So, I can tell you, if you want an incredibly spiritual way to make yourself dizzy, I'm serious. After a while, you stop getting dizzy. And it's like, when you get to the point that you are no longer turning, you're standing still and the universe is turning around you. But then the universe gets dizzy, yeah. But so there's that. And is there anything that I'm leaving out here, Sally Jo? On Wednesdays, that's okay. Right, but A Course in Miracles, it meets on Tuesday. As Sally Jo said, sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's on Zoom.
There's certain Tuesdays, and I don't want to.
Right, so check the website. And by the way, all of this stuff is on the website. So yeah, under upcoming gatherings. Please. Please, Steve, yeah. It's set to go.
Greetings, everyone. 3 weeks from now, on June 23rd, we're having, in conjunction with Northwest Interfaith and Sanamkari Mission and St. Joseph's Parish, the Multi-Faith Community Summit. And usually we have this on the Sunday before Thanksgiving, but we decided, because of everything that's going on in this world, we needed to have it sooner. And this will be, this sort of came out of the one that we had last year, where a lot of people said that they would like gatherings more often than once a year. So we're planning on having a gathering every quarter. And this is the next one. The title is Healing Extremism and Polarization. We're in this together. We're better together. If not us, who? If not now, when? This gathering will be at, right now it's planned for St. Joseph's Parish on 19th Avenue, and it may be moved to the former St. Patrick's Parish. Stay tuned to further announcements regarding that. And the format for this is we will have a guest speaker and then a panel of speakers talking about their involvement with different issues which are coming to the forefront these days. Along the lines of like homelessness, food scarcity, the environment, different forms of racism and discrimination, including the difficulties that we're facing these days regarding religious fundamentalism, and it seems like more groups are excluding others or even becoming intolerant of people who they see as others. So this is a safe gathering for us to talk about these questions, and we'll break up into small groups to share our feelings, share our stories, and have a discussion about how can we move forward. And we will see how things evolve. So I'm the president for Northwest Interfaith, and we're not doing this to tell you what to do. What we're hoping will happen is people will gather in groups in areas that they have compassion for, something that they have a lot of energy for, and then those groups will decide what can we do. And it involves sharing stories that we are not alone in this work. And we'll see what happens. And we invite you all to it. It's free. There will be some snacks and food, and we'll come together as community to interact and establish a wider family and community in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And for those of you who don't know, if it does get moved to St. Pat's, that's right over near St. Mark's Episcopal Cathedral in Capitol Hill. So it's real easy to find. It's right off the freeway. Yeah, this is a chance, as Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, said, be passionately involved in the tribulations and contingencies of your time. Here's a chance to do that. Next, what I'd like to talk to you about is, oh yes, George. Absolutely. It is the first Sunday of the month, which, besides honoring the guest, is also when we have our guiding council meeting. If you don't know who's on the guiding council, turn and look to the person next to you. They're on it. And so are you. But please come. This is where we decide a lot of the things about how the place is run, what we're going to do, and so forth. And along that line, I want to get to another practicality here. This is a beautiful building. It's a gorgeous building. It doesn't run itself. That is one miracle we have not been able to pull off. So it runs on our contributions, our contributions both of finances and of time. Those are very important. You're in the oldest wooden structure that has been continuously used as a place of worship in this area. I mean, we are a historical phenomenon. I also want to remind you, everybody here, you've all heard the saying, you can't take it with you? Well, folks, here's your chance to send some ahead. Because what you do here builds up karma, builds up energy. So I would ask that, you give generously of what you can. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add before we go offline and do sharing of the heart? Going. To the folks out in live streaming land, have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful week. Thank you for coming and joining us. We have felt your spirit. And at this point,